Okay, good morning, everyone. We're going to start the board meeting at this time. Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors, August 13th, 2024. And just for the record, Supervisor Kirk is on a well-deserved vacation, so he will not be joining us today. However, his father, Bob Kirk, has agreed to lead us in the pledge. Thank you. Okay, so as at this point in time when we do oral communications, this would be for any item that is not on the agenda. And as I've indicated before and will repeat now, the public has 3 minutes to speak up here at the podium in the center here. And they can, after 2 minutes, you'll hear a tone, and the clock is up here, and you'll know you have 1 minute left. And I would just ask that people be respectful as they're speaking and recognize that even though you may be able to and have the right to use whatever language you would like, we would appreciate you not using any bad language in this room. And so with that said, I'll call for oral communications for any item not on the agenda, if anybody would like to speak. All right, well, I got all that out and no takers. So we will close oral communications then at this point, and we will move on to staff reports. So looking for any staff that would like to share information that is going on in their respective areas and give us a rundown of what's up. Good morning, Robbie.
Good morning, Board. Robbie Bergstrom, Tuolumne County Economic Development. I wanted to announce 2 community economic development meetings. These are going to be taking place in the community of Columbia and the community of Tuolumne. This is a great opportunity for the public in the area to come. Anybody is invited, but particularly those in that community can come and attend and talk about anything they feel will bring economic development to their area. Any suggestions, any concerns they want to express are welcome. The meeting in the Columbia area will take place on Tuesday, August 27th at 5:30 at the Church of the 49ers. And the one in the Tuolumne area will be on Tuesday, September 17th at 5:30 p.m. at the Tuolumne Community Center. We welcome everyone there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional staff reports? Good morning, Dory.
Good morning, Board. Dory Beats, Office of Emergency Services. As many of you know, this last week, in the last couple of days, many of us have been busy. The Canyon Fire, of course, began on Thursday night, August 8th. Many of us were woken up to watch duty apps or alerts from the Sheriff's Office to evacuate. My household was one of those. And the Canyon Fire that started in the Tuolumne River Canyon along Buchanan Road, a place many of us dread any fire starting. I know that fire will probably update later, as well as the Sheriff's Office, but from the Tuolumne County Office of Emergency Services, I want to just give a couple updates for your board as well as the public. The EOC opened a little after midnight that night, and our public information lines were open within an hour at the most. We had opened up a shelter at the Richmond Center first, and then as that started to fill up, we opened up a second at the Sonora Senior Center. Later, we combined those, and we only kept to the one shelter, which was at the Sonora Senior Center. As required by law, when we open up a shelter now, we must also co-locate pets not in the shelter, but next to that facility. And this is definitely providing a new challenge for us, so more on that to come. We learned a lot, and we will continue to figure out our best plan of action for the next time. So Thursday night into Friday, we had 38 clients overnight and 5 pets, first at that enrichment center. Friday night then, when we converted Friday morning over to the Sonora Senior Center, Friday night we had 33 clients with 30 pets at the senior center. And then Saturday night, obviously as evacuation warnings and orders were being lifted, we only had 4 clients and 0 pets there. We closed the shelter then at 9 a.m. on Sunday morning as we got the last of those 4 clients out and back to their homes. For sheltering, I cannot thank Mo Frank in facilities. It was amazing. They were the first to help open things up and get things situated until Red Cross could be there. Absolutely. I said, Mo, welcome back. Welcome back to OES. And so she was phenomenal, as well as the facility staff. So from us to them, thank you very much for just making that happen while we were doing other things at the EOC. Also to Katie Andrews and the EMS staff for handling transportation. It always becomes a little bit of a challenge when we have individuals who might have a medical need but not have to go to the hospital. They have to go to the shelter. We have to worry about transporting them to the shelter as well as back home when they are released and allowed to do so. Huge kudos to animal control staff. Thankful to Mike Mazuch, who was embedded 24/7 with us at the EOC and making sure that we were addressing animal control issues, as well as making sure we were accommodating those with pets at our shelter. So the EOC staff that came, IT, absolute heroes in my world because they just made it happen. The phones were up, the computers were there, both at the beginning as well as when we demobbed Sunday afternoon. To our Tuolumne County CERT volunteers, Twain Harte CERT volunteers, to the CSU volunteers that came in without question throughout the entire time we were operating our public information line to help us. We could not have done it without them. Again, also to OES staff, CAO staff. Our CAO staff, Riggs, Tracy Riggs, was also there in attendance helping us throughout the process, as well as public health, animal control, GIS, CDD director showed up to help us. There were many others that were there, supervisors who popped in to check in and make sure we were all good. Supervisor Kirk, obviously, Supervisor Campbell, Supervisor Goldenberg, thanks for making, and Supervisor Brandon and Supervisor Half, making sure that we had what we needed to get things done. Last and not least, but most importantly, to fire personnel that were out there. If you know that terrain, it is incredibly steep. The amount of work they did was amazing. To the sheriff's office and their staff, from dispatch to the ones that were going door to door to make sure our community members were alerted and were evacuating, make sure road closures were there, all of that. It's amazing what goes on and the amount of personnel and the work they do. And yes, that is their job, but they do it with such intent, and it is just incredible to see. They kept us up to date, law enforcement and fire along the way as things were progressing. Our job in OES is to support them. And our job is also to help them when they need things, but also to get the message out to the public and also support our community when they are evacuated. We are very, very proud to be a part of such an amazing, committed community of first responders that made sure our community and our residents and even our visitors were safe. And so I cannot say how much we are grateful to each and every one of them. Again, whether they were in the dispatch office handling the alerts and the warnings and issuing those to the guys and gals on the line, we're doing the hard work of making sure that fire did not expand. For the community, while our public information line is shut down, again, we operate that when we have evacuations whether they're warnings or orders. Our office is available to answer questions. We've been continuing to get phone calls. We still have road closures as a result of the fire, but please call our office Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. That number is 209-533-6395. Thank you.
Thank you. And any additional staff reports? Okay, seeing none, we will close out on staff reports and we'll move on to proclamations and commendations. And if I could have the clerk please read item number 1.
Item number 1, consideration to recognize U.S. Army marksman Sajin Magdalena for her service to our country, her performance on the world stage as a patriot and a world-class marksman at the 2020 and 2024 Olympic Games, and for her personal and her engagement with the youth for our community, inspiring them to achieve their personal best in whatever endeavors they choose to pursue.
Thank you. So I've asked Supervisor Haft to please present on this item, so please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I don't know how many people on this side of the river know Sajin, but she should be a familiar name because she was championed back when we first took office. The three of us that are new to the board took office in 21. And she, well, it was actually the Tokyo Games in 2020, but we honored her during her hometown visit. She is, well, first of all, before I say anything, this young woman is phenomenal. And she didn't start being phenomenal yesterday or last month or when she was preparing for the Olympics. She's been an amazing woman from the beginning when she was just a child. She set goals early and achieved them early and kept successively creating more goals for herself and achieving them. When she was really young, she wanted to know horses better and got her own horse at 8 years old and became an expert rider on the trails, mastered that. When she was 8, I think it was, she had a goat business. She was part of 4-H, so that was helpful because 4-H gives so many young people their start. She became a exceptional marksman very early, and then all else is history. But I wanted to tell you that this is going to be something I've written about in an article that will appear in the South County. But something that her dad, who's in the audience today, told me was when she was a teenager, I want to get this right, I'm going to read it. She told her mom that her goals for herself, now this is when she was a teenager, were to compete in two separate times in the Olympic Games and to win a medal. There you go. So she's competed twice in the Olympic Games, and I don't know when I should read this certificate, if we want to have comments first and then read the certificate. How do you want to do this, Chair?
That would be fine. We can call for comments. Did you want to introduce her father further?
After we approve the certificate of recognition, I would like to call her dad up for some comments.
All right. So at this time, I'll call for public comment on this item, if anybody would like to speak about Sajin. Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to you, Supervisor Haft.
Okay, so I'm going to read this certificate. It's quite long because she's quite an accomplished young woman, so bear with me. Whereas Sajin Magdalena grew up in the town of Groveland, graduated from Keys to Learning Charter School in 2012, and attended the University of Alaska Fairbanks, where she achieved a Bachelor of Science degree in Natural Resource Management in 2018. And whereas Sajin Magdalena's shooting career began with the 4-H Motherlode Gun Club shooting program as a member of the UAF rifle team, she became an 8-time All-American Rifle Shooting Champion, qualifying for the World Championships in 2014. And whereas Sagen Madalena enlisted in the U.S. Army in March 2019 and was assigned to the U.S. AMU, which means U.S. Army Marksmanship Unit, international team as a shooter and instructor. And whereas Sagen Madalena competed in the Olympic Games in Tokyo 2020, where she finished 5th in the women's 50-meter three-position rifle competition, and whereas returning to her hometown of Groveland in 2021 on a U.S. Army home tour, Sagen Madalena engaged with members of the community in many personal appearances and addressed students at Tenaya Elementary School and Tioga High School, speaking on gun safety, discipline, and achieving one's goals. And whereas Sagen Madalena's distinguished shooting career includes competing in the World Championships in a 10-meter air rifle mixed and women in 2014, 2022, 2023, 50-meter rifle three-position mixed and women in 22 and 23, and a 50-meter rifle prone mixed and women in 22 and 23, winning a gold medal in the 2022 for a 50-meter rifle prone mixed team, a silver medal in the 2022 for 10-meter air rifle women, and a bronze medal in 2023 for a 50-meter rifle three positions women. And whereas in 2024, Sagen Madalena qualified for the U.S. Olympic team in 3 categories: 10-meter air rifle mixed team, 10-meter air rifle women, and 50-meter rifle three-position women. And whereas representing the United States of America at the 33rd Olympiad in Paris in 2024, Sagen Madalena placed 4th in the women's 10-meter air rifle and achieved a new Olympic qualification record in women's 50-meter three-position rifle, winning the silver medals in the finals. Therefore, the Board of Supervisors recognizes and honors U.S. Army Sergeant Sagen Madalena for her service to our country, her performance on the world stage as a patriot and a world-class marksman at the 2020 and 2024 Olympic Games, and for her engagement with youth of our community, inspiring them to achieve their personal best in whatever endeavors they choose to pursue. Isn't that something?
Yes, that is. That's incredible.
And I did want to say, before we vote on this, just to put it out there to the community, she's not here right now, that's why she's not in the audience, but she will be coming back in September, just before the 49er Festival in Groveland, and she will be the Grand Marshal for the parade, and then she will be hosting some competition for kids age 8 to 14 in safe shooting games. And there's 4 different types of shooting. They're fun. They're like squirt gun and paintball and that kind of thing. And she's just a wonderful mentor. She'll be doing the home tour again. I didn't mention this before, but when she came in 2021 to do the home tour, she set the bar for the U.S. Army home tours, because they do this all over, and she set a new bar for what is exceptional to do in a home tour, because she does it. She goes to the schools. She'll be coming to the schools again the Monday after the festival, and she'll be mentoring kids the whole time. She's just a breath of fresh air and such an inspiration. So should we vote on it?
Yes, let's make a
I
motion,
would
please.
like to move that we approve this certificate of recognition for Sagen Madalena.
I'd be honored to second that motion.
Okay, so I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries 4-0 with Supervisor Kirk absent today.
All right, and at this time, I'd like to call her dad, Randy Madalena, up to the podium.
Thank you. No problem. Beautiful compilation of some accomplishments. Yes, so much.
So I just want to present this to you. And let's see, is this on? It will also be presented to her personally after the parade in Mary Laveroni Park at the stage. She'll and it will be from the whole board. I'll be presenting, but she'll know it's from the whole board that we've recognized her. And just wanted to know if you had anything you wanted to say.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I think if she was here, she would just humbly point back to the previous speaker and say, those are the champions. Those are the ones that keep you guys safe. And those are the ones that are doing her jobs just like she does her job. And she's really proud of the fact that she's able to do her job. It's a fun job, right? But really, she's just doing her job, and she really appreciates the recognition from the board. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Okay, for those that are looking at the agenda, we're going to take a break from now until 9:30, and then we'll come back for our 9:30 appointment. And just for so people are aware, we'll do the 9:30 and 11, and then after lunch at 1:30, we will do our closed session items at that time. So let's take a break until 9:30 and give a chance to get set up for our presentation. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to have a brief delay before we start our presentation, and our apology. I have a staff member that was unable to get here in time for staff reports that has some information to share regarding situation with waste management in our transfer station. So our solid waste director is here. Deb, please give us a rundown.
Good morning. Thank you for making the accommodation. It's been a busy weekend. What I'd like to do is just read what was submitted by Waste Management from their special occurrence log and give you the latest update. I was just at the site this morning. So per their communication to us, the official piece of it, on Sunday, August 11th at approximately 4:45 a.m., the fire alarm was activated due to a small fire that started in the corner of the building up against a metal push wall. At approximately 5:45 a.m., the fire sprinklers turned on and started suppressing the fire. A local resident called the fire department at approximately 6:15 a.m., and the fire department responded by 6:20 a.m. Kudos. And immediately extinguished the fire. The initial assessment found only minor damage to one fiberglass section of one wall and damaged insulation on a few walls. The transfer station was closed to the public on August 11th, that was Sunday, and August 12th while the fire sprinkler liquid and fire debris was removed. On 8/12/24, a fire suppression crew was on site to repair and reset the fire sprinkler system. Once the system is in working order, the site will be open to the public again. This morning, they've replaced the sprinkler heads. They should be they're pressurizing and leak testing the system now, and it should be open to the public by noon. If anybody wants the absolute latest info, they can contact 888-558-0616. Waste Management has a pre-recorded message on there, and they update that as the situation changes. Our curbside collection has been continuing. We've been able to use part of the transfer station floor, so that curbside, both for residential and commercial, is being picked up. That's the info I have. My latest is that it should be open back to the public at noon, and I please ask people, we won't know what started this fire. Pile fires, it's hard to say. One very common item are lithium batteries. Please do not throw your button batteries in the trash. They get wet or they get swollen, and they do start fires. It's an increasingly common problem in landfills and transfer stations. Anyway, that's my brief update. I hope that's helpful to you and the public.
Yeah, quick question. You said the services resumed. Will there be any delays as a result in pickup service in any of the routes?
No, the franchise haulers, all three of them, whether it's Cal Sierra, Burns Refuse, or Moore Scavenger, have been on their normal schedule. And they're able to accommodate that. We just can't accommodate the side where the public comes in yet. And I'd prefer not to have public in until we have a working fire sprinkler suppression system there.
Okay, very good. And thanks for the update.
Thank you.
So, with that said, we will move back to our 9:30 a.m. appointment. And if I could have the clerk please read that item.
9:30 a.m. presentation and discussion of general liability and property insurance market update presented by Kevin Bibler, Senior Vice President of Alliant, and Gina Dean, the Chief Executive Officer of PRISM.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning,
Welcome, Karen.
Board. Thank you. Karen McGettigan, Human Resources. When the County Administrator's Office presented the budget for the forthcoming year and identified the budget shortfall, one of the items from that presentation that received a lot of attention was the steep increase to the county's liability insurance program. So both your board and the public had a lot of questions about the reasons for those increases, as well as what actions, if any, the county could take in response. Senior executives from both Alliant are here today, and Alliant and PRISM. So they have prepared a presentation today, and they're prepared to answer any questions that you may have. So I will introduce Gina Dean, who is the Chief Executive Officer of PRISM, and Kevin Bibler, the Senior Vice President of Alliant, the insurance broker that the county uses.
Very good. Welcome. Thank you for coming to give the presentation.
Good morning. Thank you for having us this morning. I'm Gina Dean, PRISM CEO. You all have been a member of our organization for a number of years, starting back in 1980, and so we're very pleased to be able to come give you an update on PRISM and your insurance programs. Let's see. There we go. Just to give you a little bit of background about PRISM, we are a joint powers authority of which Tuolumne County is a member. We are you. We are an organization of the county and city and school district members that participate. There are a number of them. We cover most public entities in the state of California for one coverage or another. There's some statistics on here that just give an indication of our size. We are the largest insurance JPA in the state of California. And most of the counties participate in one or more programs. PRISM is not traditional insurance. We pool risk. You are a participant in our pooled programs, and so while we act like insurance, we're not insurance at all. You pay contributions to your programs that you participate in, and those payments that you make cover things like claims that come in from your county as well as others. We have to purchase some reinsurance because where risk is not predictable, we do buy insurance. We provide a lot of services to help members prevent claims in the future. And then there is some administrative costs and investment revenues that come in. So that's generally how our budget is built. There are different cost drivers depending on the insurance program, and it's primarily based on your exposure, your potential for loss, as well as our actuarial estimates of what the claims cost for the year will be. We have insurance we have to buy, and then we can offset with insurance or investment returns. As I mentioned, Tuolumne County has been a participant in our program since 1980. This is a very high-level overview of the programs that you participate in, but I believe we do most of the coverages for your county. Liability is a big expense for you, and you can see the costs have gone up dramatically over the last 5 years, not only for your county, but for all of our members. Costs have increased greatly, and we're going to talk about why those costs have gone up, but generally it's because our claims have gone up, not just our program's claims, but all public entity claims throughout the state and across the country. You can see that claims costs for your county in particular have gone up, but mostly over the last 5 to 6 years, we've really seen a big uptick in the claims expenses compared to the previous 5 or 10 years. And so that's a better indicator of what our future costs are going to be, are the most recent years. Your premium is based on your exposure, but also your own experience. And we compare your county's experience to the other county participants in the program. That's generally how we allocate the premium. Your county's experience has been better than average, and so you receive premium credits for that. If your county's experience was worse than average, you would pay more than the other counties. But you're getting pretty good credits, about $350,000 this year alone for your good experience. And in particular, for not having large losses. You've been able to avoid large losses. Historically, smaller rural counties have had better loss experience and lower settlements and verdicts than some of the more urban counties, but that's really changed the last few years. Some of our rural Northern California counties have had some pretty significant settlements or verdicts. It's becoming less or more common than we would have seen in the past. So there's a complicated series of events. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin to talk about why the costs have gone up.
Thanks, Gina. Good morning, and thanks for having us. Gina mentioned that you are part of a risk-sharing pool, and so up to $5 million in the liability program for every loss, you're pooling that layer of loss with the other members. And that's very cost-effective compared to going straight to the commercial insurance market. But at some point, we do have to go to the commercial insurance market. And so that's where Alliant comes in. We go out and place that coverage. And unfortunately, the commercial insurance market has been extremely difficult, we call a hard market, for 5, 6, 7 years now. And we're going to talk a little bit today about why that is. In the good old days, we could go out and place $20 million of limits for the whole group with a single carrier. And it would be relatively inexpensive, very inexpensive compared to today's rates. But there are no longer any individual markets that are willing to take on that much exposure. And so now we work with 9 different carriers to provide that same $20 million of limit to the group. Since 2013, 2014, something changed in the loss experience. If you look at the chart that's on here, there was a significant and consistent increase over the next 10 years in claim costs. 11% annual average increase year over year over year. So the premiums that carriers were collecting prior to 13, 14 just weren't sufficient to cover the claims afterwards. And what has happened is a phenomenon where claims that used to cost $2 to $3 million now cost $5 to $10 million. And if you had a catastrophic claim back in the old days, maybe it was a $10 million claim. Now it's not uncommon to see a $20 or $30 million claim, and we've had some even higher than that. So the numbers have just gotten completely out of control, and it impacts all buyers of insurance, but especially public entities who are seen as deep pockets, who do a lot of things that have a lot of exposure, and so have a lot of risk of loss, and unfortunately those losses are just getting bigger and bigger. So why? Why are these losses getting bigger? A lot of it has to go with a term that's called nuclear verdicts. And this nuclear verdict is technically defined as anything over $10 million. A lot of times these days, $10 million would be a win, which is just sort of mind-boggling. But if you look at the chart here, we're showing the number of not $10 million, but $20 million verdicts across the country by year. And prior to the pandemic, we were rolling along at about 90, 95 of those type of claims on average each year. Of course, during the pandemic, the court shut down, so we had a very steep decline, but we're back, and we're back with a vengeance. You can see in 2022, there was 140 $20 billion verdicts and over 200 in 2023. So the amount of money that is going to plaintiffs on individual cases is just staggering. And of course, when you're at risk, of facing a $20 million plus verdict, you're much more likely to settle for a bigger number. So the verdicts are driving higher settlement values as well. So why is that happening? Why the nuclear verdicts? Well, a sort of catch-all term for what's going on is called social inflation. We've probably all heard social inflation. And technically, social inflation is whenever claims costs grow faster than general economic inflation. And that has certainly been happening over the last decade, and for a number of different reasons. I mean, it's hard not to say that as a society, we're more and more litigious. We're more apt to sue. Unfortunately, there's growing distrust of large corporations, and I think public entities get lumped in with that. So when something does go wrong, they're more apt to look for someone to blame, and a lot of times that's us as public entities. There's also a propensity for larger and larger jury awards. We see a situation where courts are favoring plaintiffs, and all of these things are kind of circular because the larger verdicts drive more cases for hopes of larger and larger verdicts. And so they all work together to cause the social inflation, and it's significant. If you look at the chart below, it shows the impact of social inflation just on commercial auto liability. And it shows that there's been a 14% increase on claims, which equates to $20 billion over that time frame, and that's just auto liability. But it impacts, social inflation impacts all lines of coverage in the liability arena. One of the main drivers is litigation funding. Litigation funding is when a disinterested third party literally invests in a plaintiff's defense. So they're paying to get better experts, maybe higher powered attorneys. Sometimes they're just paying the bills for the plaintiff so they can continue the fight on their case. And the way it works is that if they win a big verdict, they get their investment back plus a percentage of the claim. So they're literally betting on the outcome of a tort claim. And if they lose, the plaintiff doesn't have to pay them anything back. And so there's really no disincentive for a plaintiff to take on litigation funding. And the scary part is there's no regulation on this. And they're not even required to disclose it to a jury. So it really makes an uneven, imbalanced playing field when you go to court. And it's happening way more often now than it did. 5 years ago, plaintiffs' attorneys said about 23% of their firms use litigation financing. Last year, that number jumped to 69%. So it's a really big deal that's not getting that much attention. And then the plaintiff bar itself. You know, we've all seen these ads, we've all heard it on the radio, seen them on TV, and if you drive around any sort of urban area, you see these type of billboards all over the place. The plaintiff's bar spends $3.5 billion a year trying to drum up business. This is a hugely lucrative deal for them, and so they're looking for cases all the time. And the plaintiff's bar is very connected, they're very cooperative. When something works for one, they share that information, and it's kind of a high tide raises all boats for them, because if you get a $20 million verdict on your case, much better odds I'm going to get a $21 million verdict on my next case. And so they work very well together, and frankly, the defense bar has been behind in terms of cooperation. We're hoping that that is changing. And then lastly here, there are folks that look at jurisdictions, and we here in California are in a poor jurisdiction from the standpoint of excessive tort costs. This group here puts out a, excuse my French, but a judicial hellhole list every year. You don't want to be at the top of that list. Right now we're number 3, but we've been 1, 2, or 3 for the last 8 years. And so they also take a look at, well, what is that costing the state? And they did some calculations that the excessive tort cost, if you broke it down as a tax, for every citizen in California, it's over $2,100 a year in excessive tort costs just because we operate here in California. So all of those things are contributing to a situation where carriers are either leaving the space, so there are much fewer insurance carriers that will write public entity liability business in California than there were 10 years ago. The ones that stick around, they want to attach higher and higher so they get further away from the loss. They restrict coverage, they put in lower limits, and of course the premiums increase. And so in a nutshell, it's these large losses, the verdicts, the social inflation, all of those things that are contributing to the market increases on the liability side. So more good news. On the property side, we've seen significant increases over time. Part of that is rates, and part of that is increased values. At the same time, when we've been seeing rates increasing over the last several years, we've also seen inflation, and that drives up the costs of rebuilding and repairing. And so we see that built in to the premiums as well. So why is that happening? In a nutshell here, it's the large catastrophic losses that we read about, that we see on the news, that make the headlines. So think wildfires, hurricanes, tornadoes, atmospheric rivers, earthquakes, all of these things that contribute billions of dollars of loss to the insurance market, and they're happening more and more frequently. This graph shows the number of billion-dollar weather events by year, and you can see back in the good old days, we averaged 3.5, 6, 7. Last year we had 28 billion-dollar plus weather events, and all of these numbers are adjusted for inflation. It's not just that these are inflated dollars, it's just that they're happening more often. This chart is intended to show what we're talking about. So all of those graphics are different billion-dollar events. There should be 28 of them. A lot of them are in the Midwest and the East Coast, where tornadoes and convective storms are. But you can see in California, interestingly, no wildfire last year, but we had the severe flooding from the atmospheric river losses. And so more than $1 billion of loss, insured loss, from that one event. Of course, we have the Maui fire down at the bottom. And, if you looked last year, there were 22 of them. In California, we had wildfire. The year before, there was 18 of them, wildfire. And it's just becoming more the norm than the exception. Here in California, we used to always be the earthquake state, right? So if you thought about a catastrophic loss in California, you were worried about earthquake. Over the last 10 years, wildfire has become an annual event. And of course, we're seeing those this year with, one of the bigger wildfires is still going on right now in the state. And then the atmospheric river and the horrific flooding that is happening is also considered a catastrophic exposure for California. So PRISM has also been able to take on more self-funded risk in the property program. So whereas before they would buy insurance directly above each member's deductible, starting 2 years ago, they are now self-funding the first $10 million per loss. And so that saved a considerable amount of money for the members, but unfortunately, we also saw historic losses over the last 2 years. And so over the long term, it's going to be a good play, but in the short term, it really hit the program hard, because whereas we were averaging $60 million a year in that first $10 million layer, in the first year we had $133 million of loss due to some of these catastrophic exposures I was talking about. So we plan to stay the course, but the losses are piling up for sure. There is a bit of good news on the horizon, and things happen fast. The PRISM property program renews at 3/31 each year, and at that time rates were somewhat stabilizing in the commercial property market. By 7/1, when we have other clients that renew, it was actually starting to soften. And so it may be that we've gotten to the point in the property world where we're reaching equilibrium, where the rates have finally caught up after years of increases. That's the hope. We watch the wind, we watch the fire, we watch the earth shaking, and make sure, hopefully, we don't have another terrible catastrophic loss season, because that could change all of that. But if not, if it's kind of a normal season, we could see reducing rates in the property for next year. And then the question is, what are we doing about it? And I'll turn it back over to Gina to talk about what PRISM is doing about it.
All right, well, as Kevin noted, we're in an environment where we've got social challenges, we've got environmental challenges and geographic challenges, but that doesn't mean that there aren't things that we can do. PRISM spends a lot of time trying to improve our programs, improve our pricing, because not only your county, but all of our members have concerns about the increased costs, particularly over the last few years. We are constantly evaluating the structure of our programs, the coverage we provide, to make sure that we're providing you the best coverage at the lowest possible cost. That is an ongoing thing we do on a daily basis, Kevin and I, and our teams. We have to make sure that the way that we're allocating premiums across the membership is equitable. Everybody should be paying their fair share and not overly subsidizing the other members. We spend a majority of our time trying to manage claims and settle where it makes sense to settle, but fight where it makes sense to fight too. We do win cases. Although it doesn't feel like it sometimes, we do win cases. And we're winning the ones that we should win, where the member did nothing wrong. We can help the members manage your claims too. We have expert staff who can help find experts, recommend settlements, and share our expertise from what we see from the other members to help you better pursue your claims. We have a robust data and analytics team that can help identify areas where we should be focusing, whether it's on risk prevention, risk management, or managing your claims. And we've got a team of experts that can come provide training and other resources to help you reduce your exposure as well. We have a legislative committee and a legislative lobbyist that helps to support legislation, to oppose legislation where it's going to increase the cost for our members. We spend a lot of time there as well. And we have a good coalition of public entity, other public entity consortiums that work with us as well. We very much value long-term relationships with our reinsurance carriers, many of which we've been with for over 25 years, and that provides significant benefit to you all when we are going to renew coverages. When they're looking at the things that are going on in the marketplace, they give us a good discount for being a long-term client and for working with them over many, many years, as opposed to a new buyer into the market that doesn't get the same kind of favorable pricing and accommodations. And then lastly, several years ago, we established a captive insurance company. So PRISM itself owns an insurance company that's domiciled in Utah. We do that to enhance our investment earnings. And you can see from the graphic here, our consolidated earnings were higher utilizing the captive than it would have been had we just invested here in California as a JPA. That has earned this organization millions of dollars in investment income that we would not have earned otherwise, and we give the members an upfront premium discount because we can anticipate that higher investment yield. There are things that the county can do as well. So Kevin's going to go over some of those.
Yeah, a lot of times when we talk to the members, the counties, they say, "Oh, this is, we just have to sit here and take it." And some things are out of our control, but other things are within our control. And so some things that we would recommend is to take advantage of the loss control and safety resources that PRISM has to offer. They have a vast library of available resources, from trainings to online material to presentations where folks can come out and work with your staff to train them up on how to act and do their jobs more safely, how to make sure that you're in a good space to defend against property loss, all of those type of things. So I would recommend, and a lot of those, by the way, are the costs of which are included in the premium that you're paying. So I would highly recommend that you continue to do that, because you do make good use of the services, but they're adding new ones all the time. So I would recommend that as step number one. The second would be to stay current on maintenance, inspections, and trainings. Oftentimes in tough budget situations, it's tempting to reduce those line items and not be diligent about maintaining buildings and training your employees and whatnot. And of course, that just leads to higher exposure and more likelihood of losses, and we're seeing the losses get more expensive. So it's kind of something to really continue to invest in. We would encourage you to consider assuming more risk. For each of the programs, you have a self-insured retention that you maintain, which means that you're responsible for like in the liability program, the first $100,000 of each loss, it would be a very good thing to look at higher self-insured retentions. You could increase that, which would reduce your premium or contribution that you pay to PRISM. Of course, it also increases the exposure to your budget if losses do occur. So it's something that you have to analyze in conjunction with actuarial estimates to see how much more exposure you're taking on, but that's certainly something that we would recommend doing. It is a way to take on more exposure and pay less in premium without going completely bare, which is really challenging from a budget standpoint. If you go bare and you have that $20 million verdict or settlement, it's just really hard for a budget to withstand that. But by taking a higher SIR, you can have some of that while still maintaining coverage for those catastrophic losses. So a lot of members are taking a look at that, and we can certainly help you with that analysis. Gina mentioned defending claims. There are times when we have really, really good facts, and it's something that we got brought in on where we really shouldn't have been. And in those cases, we absolutely recommend defending those as rigorously as possible. The more wins we all get collectively, maybe we can break some of the cycle that I talked about earlier that's driving up those costs. Data. Like in everything else today, data is hugely important. And so PRISM is collecting loss data on a monthly basis. With that loss data, we're able to do predictive analysis that helps not only establish the appropriate costs for the contributions, but it also helps us when we're in negotiations with carriers to show that we are a better risk than the next file that they see come across their desk, and it helps us to drive prices down. So high quality data is very, very important. Suggesting legislative change. In my opinion, to really turn the cycle on the liability side, it's going to require legislative change. And it's probably going to require a municipality to go bankrupt or something that dramatic to drive that legislative change. But in the meantime, we're making smaller strides. Public entities are banding together to get collective data. They're using that data to lobby legislators to try and either eliminate bills that would be destructive or promote bills that would be helpful. In recent years, we have had some success in at least getting changes to bills that would be destructive and inserting some immunities on the front end as opposed to trying to fight for them after the legislation has gone through. So we take the wins when we can get them, and we continue to work, but that's really important to support that legislative process. Consider purchasing additional limits. $25 million is a lot of limit, but we are seeing that threshold surpassed more and more often. And through PRISM, you can consider buying additional limits up to as much as $50 million per loss on the liability side. And then finally, help educate the public. The public does not understand that when we see these astronomical verdict and settlement numbers, that they're the ones that are paying for it. It trickles down. It hits the public entity budgets. It hits the taxpayer. It seems like monopoly money when you're in the jury box, but it's not. And we're all paying for it. So to the extent that we can help get the word out to the public, maybe that makes a difference. And so those are some of the things that we would recommend you consider in terms of what we all collectively can do to try and help stem the tide. And with that, we thank you very much for your attention, and we're happy to try and answer any questions that you might have.
Very good. Well, thank you for the presentation. Excuse me. So I'll look to the board for any questions only at this time, and then we'll go to public comment and come back to the board for comments and possibly additional questions depending on what we hear. So Supervisor Brandon, do you have some?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. And I appreciate the presentation. I know we've been with PRISM for a long time, and before it was PRISM too, I believe. So I appreciate you making the trip up here. That always means a lot to us. Insurance is on everybody's mind. We actually had the Department of Insurance in at our last meeting. You may have heard. I think there was a lot of upset nature, and that's what we're seeing in the private market. But this came up in our budget that we have seen a pretty massive rise in the premiums that we're paying for this. I think we have projected this year in our budget $4 million, and that's from a few years ago at $1 million, a pretty pretty steep increase that has at least me raising eyebrows about this. Questions. I wanted to ask, you mentioned with local risk reduction strategies. So this is one of the things we brought up with the Department of Insurance, is there's not a buffet of options that are listed to us to say, if you do X, get Y, right? If you do these things, you're reflecting it. So I wanted to ask, we have done risk prevention strategies here and reduction strategies in catastrophic wildfire. Is that taken into account, as I think counties want, in your catastrophic risk modeling for any of this coverage? And are you also putting out a buffet of options that we can consider that would lower our premiums?
Yeah, I'll talk about the buffet of options. Really comes with how much risk you all are retaining. Whether it's on the property side, you can take a bigger deductible. On the liability side, a bigger self-insured retention. So where you're assuming more risk, there's still a cost to that. So while your premiums with PRISM may go down, you still have to fund for your potential for loss. So if you look at an overall cost of risk basis, it may not change too much, but there is the ability for you to take on more risk yourself.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, okay.
So I'm saying if we were to, in an area where we had a lot of our more valuable assets, enact a vegetation management ordinance on all of the properties and be in compliance with that, would PRISM be able to incorporate that into the model to look at whether the insurance risk you have modeled based on terrain, geography, and all of that accurately reflects the work on the ground?
Yeah, I don't know that their wildfire modeling is that sophisticated for the commercial properties that we're covering. We certainly talk with underwriters about all of the things that are being done here in the state to reduce wildfire risk in particular, but I don't know how much of that actually gets into their modeling, because the volume of properties that they are pricing is billions and billions of dollars across the whole state. So we can certainly try and work with them to incorporate some of that, but I don't know how much it will actually affect an individual member's premiums. Really what they're looking at is our loss experience. And so to the extent we can reduce our losses, we can reduce our premiums. When there are big wildfires, underwriters that we work with across the globe are looking, and we try and tell them, yes, there are big fires and there is significant loss, but when you look at PRISM's actual losses, they're not as catastrophic as the news makes them out to be. And so we do point out the things that are being done. How much of that actually gets into their risk modeling, I don't know. And again, it's more about our loss experience than our actual modeling.
Okay, but up to 10 million, it's coming out of PRISM directly, so you're not going to a reinsurance market. And so within that, I assume you're doing some level of calculation on liability risk, your own modeling. So within that, and I'm speaking specifically because this is a county originating organization. Counties are advocating for this type of consideration. Would you in that be able to, and it doesn't have to be veg management, it could be on more normal things, flooding risk. If we were to do improvements on our buildings, can we actually see that reflected in some type of rate adjustment or it not increasing? Or is that really not accounted for in the model?
You will see it eventually when the losses are reduced.
Sorry, so statewide, if the losses are
driver,
reduced.
The primary driver is your actual claims.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no specific credits for the things that you're talking about, but your individual loss experience is considered in the allocation of the premium for that first $10 million layer. So to the extent that those things that you're talking about reduces your actual losses, then that will drive down your premiums in future years. The other thing is that because the commercial market really wasn't getting that granular in terms of credits and those sort of things, and because the self-funded piece of the property program has only been in existence for 2 years, there are no specific credits for doing things like you're talking about, but that's not to say that that type of detail couldn't be something that happens in the future, especially if, like you said, more of the members are looking for that. It's just, it is a bit of a huge undertaking because there are so many exposures to loss that the counties and the cities and the districts have collectively and individually. And so you really have to be careful about your model and making changes quickly because you can have unintended consequences or impacts. So it is things that PRISM and Alliant look at the allocation methodologies every year, and that's certainly something that could be taken into account.
Okay, and I want to ask too, up to, not counting supplemental insurance, so for the 25 million coverage, the basic kind of package, do all 58 counties rely on PRISM for all of the coverage, or do some of them choose to split certain aspects of that to other insurance companies?
So any of the counties that are participating in PRISM's GL programs, and there are two, there's GL1 and GL2. And GL2 is different because it has a minimum SIR of $1 million, so it tends to be larger entities that are joining that. But anyone that's in one of those two programs has to buy the full $25 million of limit for the GL. And then some buy more, but there is currently no option to buy less than the full $25 million limit.
Okay, so it's for the 25 million, but if we add new buildings onto our inventory of assets, then does that increase our premiums? It does, correct? I mean,
yeah, I'm sorry, I thought we were talking liability. We're talking a little bit apples and oranges. On the property side, there's no $25 million limitation. There's $600 million of coverage for each event on an all-risk basis. But absolutely, when you add locations or just each year as the value of the building increases because of inflation, it's your value times the rate is your premium. So if your values go up for either one of those reasons, that will increase the premium.
Okay, and I think that gets to the question. So we have personal claims, and we have what would be our physical kind of assets there.
Yes.
So do all counties that contract with PRISM have both of those under the same house? Do some only do the liability coverage and choose other options for their physical assets?
Yeah, although, they're almost, so PRISM has 55 of the 58 counties.
Okay.
In one or more of the programs. Most of the 55 participate in one of the GL1 or GL2 programs, so that's your civil cases. Almost all of the 55 participate in the property. So most of them buy both, and there's a couple that don't participate in either property or general liability. But the mass majority participate. I don't have the numbers right here, but I would guess at least 50 of the county members participate in both.
Okay, and then in the rates, this is my last question, that were presented and what we're seeing, that's a combined rate, right? That's going to be physical as well as the tort kind of liability.
They're two separate premiums, and so we showed two tables. I don't know how it gets to you at the board level, but there are two separate invoices, two separate quotes, one for the property side, so your real property assets, and one for the tort liability.
And maybe a question to the staff. So if we get $2.5 million last year for what we're paying in liability insurance, or either, how is it split up between kind of those two categories? Because I mean, that's how I end up seeing this. We have a lawsuit, some type of litigation, and PRISM is engaged, or we're paying for insuring our physical assets. But I don't know how that breaks down.
So we do have it broken down in our budget. It's not in the what we gave you. We showed you what we had for liability, which is that $2.5 million amount that they had on there. Our property insurance is only $500,000 to $600,000, and that includes all of our buildings. So they are separated. The primary driver and the biggest cost is that liability, which is what he's describing.
Okay.
And that is that $2.5 million. We have property, we have med malpractice, we have a series of other types of premiums that we're paying for, but the liability is the largest, and your board is aware of some of those types of claims that we have had to settle over these last few years.
That's really helpful. I think when we initially were looking at that combined line item, I had a different impression of that it was more our physical assets and fire risk type things driving that.
Yeah,
so
it's mostly
thank you.
liability for the civil part, as he was saying.
All right, Supervisor Heth.
Yes, thank you, Gina and Kevin, for the presentation. I do have one question. It's regarding legislation, and it was one of your first slides that you had, and I can't remember what you called it, but if you can go back, maybe I can. Is this?
That was the beginning.
Not. Yeah. It was regarding litigation and how there's no legislation on, this is it, on
Yeah, no regulation.
the third party getting involved in funding for, okay. So my question is on that, and to your knowledge, is there any state legislator from California who has looked into this or who is interested in taking this up that we can go talk to as far as a bill or something like that?
I don't have specific names. We do have a coalition of entities and associations that are working to find a legislator that will take a bill that would at least require disclosure of litigation funding. So that's something we're working on very actively. In other states, they've been successful in getting that kind of legislation passed. So it is at the top of our list of things to do.
Are you aware of which states have been successful? Do you remember offhand?
You know, I don't know them off the top of my head.
Okay.
There's 2 or 3. I want to say there were Washington and Colorado. Okay.
Okay. So just in the future, if you do hear of a legislator that has asked questions or is interested, whether it's an assembly person or a senator, I think we'd be interested in knowing who that is.
Absolutely. We will definitely be reaching out to our membership asking for your support.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Campbell.
And thank you, Supervisor Haft. That kind of answers one of the questions I had, because I was also kind of keying in on that it seems like public agencies have very few tools in the tool chest to oppose this type of thing. That there's a practice in place, there's a loophole, there's not a whole lot we can do about it, and it sounds like there's nobody that's standing up for us. And so my question was going to be, who can we get to stand up for us? But there was another thing that you mentioned that I really, it was at the very end, sir, that you mentioned about getting awareness in the community that this is their money. I remember we had it's a bit of a separate issue, but we had an issue in our county where we were looking at eminent domain on a particular piece of property. We were able to resolve it and come up with a settlement, but prior to that, I got emails from members of the community saying we needed to pay the property owner whatever they wanted, and I just thought that's your money, you know. That don't you get? It's not my money, you know. Maybe a small portion of it. It's not any other board member's money, but it's the public's money. And what can we do? Is there any effort to address that? That it's just sort of a cultural shift that people think that the county is just this bottomless pit of money that we're like Congress, we can print our own money, but we just do not have access to unlimited resources. How do you bridge that gap?
We are spending a lot of time with our members trying to help them understand that, you know, when they do have a bad verdict or a big settlement, that they're talking to their constituents about the fact that it's not just insurance money. This is county money. This is county dollars. And yes, you're part of a JPA that helps fund some of those, but those are all funded by other counties, other cities here in the state of California. It is public entity tax dollars that pay for these large claims. And we need the public to understand that. And it's tempting when, you know, the media is asking questions about where's this money going to come from. It's easy to say, don't worry, it's insurance. Our community is protected. But that's not the truth. It is your money. And so we need our members to help get that message across to the public. This analysis that was done that put a number, a tort tax, on these exorbitant settlements and verdicts, that is real taxpayer money. Every Californian's contributing, you know, over $2,000 a year to pay for these kinds of settlements and verdicts. That's a lot of money. Now, I know in my community, if a road tax goes up $10 a month, there's a huge uproar, right? But there's this tort tax that nobody's talking about that is costing California taxpayers a lot of money every year. And there is a way to reduce those, and that's to come back to something more normal, making people whole, not making them rich.
Supervisors, can I just add one thing that I know we've experienced in our county is sometimes, and of course we work very closely with PRISM on the litigation matters, and sometimes we are settling cases because we know that settling is a better business decision for the county and the taxpayers, although sometimes those settlements might not seem like that to the public. But when we think about the cost of litigation and continuing it, and or if the facts just aren't that great for us, and sometimes they're not, and if they are, obviously we fight them. But I know that the public has raised concerns about sometimes the settlements, and yet we're taking all of this into consideration when we're making just having discussions with our board and when they're making the decision about what they want to do. And I know that that's another piece of trying to get the public to understand that by settling some cases that need to be settled, we're actually reducing the county's exposure to liability, and we're resolving it, and then there will not be continued expenses. So it's just another factor that I know as attorneys we're really well aware of this, but I think the general public doesn't understand that this is what we're facing in California.
So it's like an unending cycle, though, when we do that, because it sounds like this litigation funding element is raising the cost to litigate these things. Normally, where we might want to go to the mat on an issue, the risk to do that, because we're fighting with deeper pockets than even counties have to litigate these issues, we're settling more. And so because we're settling more, the net amount that plaintiffs can expect from a settlement is going up, because the risk of going to court is going up. And then then the judgments if you do go to trial go up. And so it's just this never ending cycle of you either avoid it or go to trial, but either way, that cost is going to go up over time. How do you break that?
I think
it's almost like a addiction or a drug, or just like something that we can't get out of.
Yeah, there's a lot of people spending a lot of time trying to figure that out. I think you did a really good job of summarizing what has caused the last 10 years of increase to happen. It's that cycle. They're all interrelated. And so some of the things we talked about that PRISM can do and the members can do are things to try and eat away at that. But no one has yet come up with, the answer that if we could do that, it would fix it, other than something that seems unrealistic, and that would be a tort cap. Other states, many other states, most other states have tort caps that limit the amount that can be handed out, for emotional, suffering and that sort of thing. California does not. It's open-ended. California also has joint and several, which means that if the public entity is even a small percentage responsible, found to be a small percentage, you could be, and oftentimes are, responsible for the entire damages, even though you might have only been 1 or 2% responsible. There's been people that have been battling that for decades. So that's why I said earlier on, I think it's going to take dramatic and drastic legislative change, and whether that's realistic or not, in order to really break that cycle that you were talking about.
Thank you.
All right. My questions have been answered by those that were posed by the other board members, so I'll go to public comment. At this time, would anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I'll bring it back to the board for comments, and if you had any additional questions, that's fine as well. Do you have anything, Supervisor Brandon?
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank you again for traveling up and presenting here. This has been helpful. It's a lot of information, too, that I wasn't familiar with. I wasn't aware initially that I believe every county has the opportunity to put a member that's involved with PRISM, correct? That's something I just kind of learned about Googling ahead and checking with this today. I think that's something that would be helpful. But I appreciate all the work that you do and, of course, the work that CSAC does on behalf of counties. This is absolutely a huge priority. I mean, it's probably one of the most frustrating things being in local government is having been low man on the totem pole there, and having in any case the concern of litigation, and not serious litigation where it should be that public agencies are accountable for misconduct and they are accountable for real damages to people and condemnation and whatnot. But where you are looking at folks who are, to an extent, ambulance chasing and trying to find a problem to sue anything, and whether that is a development project, whether that is a county program, that we can do 99.9% of everything right, but if one thing is incorrect, and it can be played to the right jury or to the right judge or in the right way or with the right funding or the right experts, that we have these amounts of money being lost. I knew that it was a lot. I know that tort reform, and we're a very litigious state, I know that drives up medical costs. I know that drives up pretty much every cost across the board on households and families and agencies and businesses. It's really useful to see this infographic. And who is ATR and J&H?
ATR is the American Tort Reform Association.
Okay.
So it's ATRA, I think.
Okay, and this is really helpful. I don't know with your status on it, but with the affiliation with CSAC, if there is some opportunity to take a more active role in presenting a much expanded version of this, and being able to help brief legislators. I think what was mentioned too is referring them to us and being more engaged as an intermediary that is experts in this field, in helping to direct us who are often rotating in and out of seats, right, who may not be, and most of the time are not going to be insurance experts, what we can do to be advocates in that, making sure that gets to the right committees within it, and giving us, I think, a direction would be very, very helpful. I think there are a lot of legislators, not enough, that appreciate what local government does and want to support that and want to protect jobs. And when they want their projects done in their districts, they don't want it wrapped up into, as much as possible, court cases and years of studies, simply to basically make it to where nobody can, and you can always sue, but there's less of a chance. So that would be really helpful. And like I said, thank you for the time. I particularly had a lot of questions about how fast our premiums have increased. I thought that was more related to our physical facilities. As a rural county, I know that we have a lot of deferred maintenance that is a priority, and yet the dollars just aren't there. That's what it is between that and the other things we're talking about, they're not extras. They're all existential things. We're choosing to invest a finite amount of money in a much larger problem of things that are all incredibly important. But it was really helpful to understand the separation between how much our physical assets are driving that and how much what we've spent a lot of time having to deal with, and I think any public agency, personal liability issues driving that too, and these so-called nuclear settlements or whatever the term was there. So thank you so much for presenting this, and please do take as much or more of an active role in helping to guide us and our advocacy into the future.
Thank you.
Supervisor Half or Campbell, any additional?
I think Supervisor Brandon said a lot of what I was thinking. I just wanted to thank you. I know this is presentation only. We're not here to deliberate anything today, but thank you for raising the awareness bar for our board and for the public, whoever ends up watching this on our public access TV. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I concur with the comments of my colleagues, and for those that might be have a tertiary understanding or familiarity with what we're talking about here, they've probably seen this board speak very negatively of individuals and agencies and companies in the insurance industry. And so for the information of the public, these people right here are the good guys. They're the ones that are advocating for counties, for public agencies. They're the people that are trying to reduce costs so that we can use those funds for other things to serve the public instead of paying lawyers and paying settlements. Just thank you very much for your comments and for representing us and making sure that we are protected in this very litigious world that we live in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I've got just a few comments. There's a reason 55 of 58 counties are involved in this, right? You know, this whole pooling process, obviously, it shows it works. We may not be pleased with the increases that we see. We should look at taking advantage where we can, perhaps even in increasing deductibles or other areas as offered. I know recently I did that on my own personal homeowner's insurance. I doubled my deductible, and there was a pretty good cost savings. Still darn high, but I did save some money. I'm glad to see that Tuolumne County achieved, by formula, some savings, but still the costs are going up. But I do attribute the savings that we've had to various areas of the county, including, human resources. Certainly County Council is looking out, for these things, and our admin, and carrying to the board and what we do in setting policies to help try to, negate, increases wherever we can. So it's a good program. I'm very much in favor. There's areas that sometimes it's a little bit of a bitter pill to swallow, when we agree to let PRISM, take things and we think, but when you look at the realities of life and the costs in the legal world, it's incredibly high. So really appreciate the presentation, and thank you very much for coming out and enlightening us. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so looking at our agenda, folks,
Supervisor Goldenberg, we're
Yes.
ready to do a closed session item 2 if your board is ready to do that one.
that's what I was just going to ask, if we have time, because we've got a half an hour before our next appointment. So let's, if I can have the clerk please read item 2 under closed session.
Want to do 3 as well? I think we could do both if you wanted, do 2 and 3 within
2
30
and 3?
minutes. Yeah.
Okay, please read items 2 and 3.
Item number 2, closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, Authority Government Code Section 54956.9, D2, 1 case. Item number 3, closed session, conference with labor negotiators, Tracy Riggs, County Administrator, Roger Root, Assistant County Administrator, Karen McGettigan, Human Resources Direct and Risk Manager, and Deb Showman, Senior HR Analyst, Authority Government Code Section 54957.6, all bargaining units.
Okay, so question to County Council, do we expect a report out on either of these 2 items?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to look for public comment on these 2 closed session items, number 2 and number 3. Is there any public comment? And are we going to meet in the law library? Okay. All right, so we're going to go into closed session at this time, and we'll be back in time for our 11 a.m. appointment. Thank you. All right, welcome back. Continue the Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors meeting. The closed session items, there's no report out. We give direction to staff. And so we will now continue on with our 11 a.m. appointment. And if I could get the clerk to please read that item.
11 a.m., presentation and discussion of Rural County Representatives of California, RCRC, Strategic Plan and Work of Affiliate Entities, Golden State Finance Authority, National Home Buyers Fund, Environmental Services, JPA, Rural Advancement Institute, Golden State Natural Resources, and Golden State Connect Authority.
Very good. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming in to present to us.
Thank you for having me. And I'm working this thing, right? So just, if I'm moving slides, I'm just going to hit the side button. Okay, that's fine. I think I can figure it out. So yeah, I'm Craig Ferguson with RCRC. I've worked now 17 years there, and have watched RCRC grow into a bit of a powerhouse versus what it used to be. And we're at this point where, I don't remember how many counties were members then, but it was probably around 23, 25, and now we're at the point of having to stop counties coming in because everyone wants to join RCRC. And we kind of say, look, you're part of CSAC, we're rural, and our focus is rural, and we've got some affiliate entities that I'll talk about today too. And so really this is just an updated strategic plan of RCRC, being that you're members and we work for you, and we try and do this once a year. We've got 40 member counties, and we try and get between the 5 of us in the executive team, just go visit once a year and just give an update. Oh, use the mouse. Gotcha. There we go. So I'm not sure where you guys are. Do you have it on your computers? Oh, down there. Okay. I was expecting you all to turn around. So as you can see, RCRC, there's divisions. There's government affairs, economic development, business development, administration, and finance. And you can see the list of affiliates, which I'll touch on. The main goal behind RCRC, and when it was formed in the early 70s, in fact, it was even formed as a water board authority in the early 50s, and then got transformed into RCRC in I think it was 72. As a much smaller entity, and but the focus is really rural California, because there's no voice in rural California. The big cities get the voice, they get the politics, and the water issues, the fire issues, the forest issues just don't really get a voice. And RCRC was kind of formed behind that, and is kind of their mission. So the equitable access side, we've got broadband, housing, health services. Impactful advocacy from the state and the federal level, innovative approaches. The idea is RCRC works for the members, and the strength of the 40 members is how we get things done, as opposed to you alone trying to go. You can go via RCRC or CSAC for that matter, because most of the members are both, but we have a more of a rural vision. Healthy communities, water, forest resiliency, wildfires, I said, water resiliency, infrastructure and economic development, and then just internally focusing on operational excellence from human resources to technology to fiscal health. And the vision, RCRC is the premier advocate and innovative service provider for rural counties in California, and that's the vision. And we've got affiliate entities. But we'll work for RCRC. There's no staff in the affiliated entities, and I'll touch on how that works in a bit. So you can see the state and federal advocacy, state policy areas of, obviously the very important forest health, wildfires. We've seen some big ones just in a few days, water, drought, broadband, housing, energy, health access. And we mentioned the CPUC because we spend a lot of time dealing with the CPUC, and we've made some inroads on the broadband side, which I'll touch on when we touch on Golden State Connect Authority. Golden State Finance Authority was formed in 93 and is statewide now. So we've got member counties, and the same 40 board members on RCRC sit on Golden State Finance Authority. And then we've got associate member counties. They don't have a vote, but they're able to join this joint powers authority. So we've got 56 of the 58 counties, and then there's 300 plus cities that are members of GSFA. So we operate a housing and energy program statewide. We've helped over 86,000 families obtain home ownership in California, over 16.5 billion in financing, and over 800 million in down payment assistance. And that's the focus for the low to moderate income home buyer, especially in California, is the down payment. And we come up with the down payment to provide them. Historically, it was in the form of gift. More recently, in the form of a second mortgage, just based on the mortgage market and the pricing. Tuolumne, it doesn't look great, 180 families, but Tuolumne's got a availability problem for the most part. There's not as much around as, say, Riverside, but we have provided home ownership to 180 families and over 870,000 in down payment assistance, and most of that was in the form of gifts. And then we got another affiliate which really focuses outside of California. This is National Home Buyers Fund, and we've helped 45,000 families in all the other states. And this is an affiliate of GSFA and RCRC, but we still do business in California depending on what lenders use it. So you can see we've got 8 families that use National Home Buyers Fund in Tuolumne County and 76,000 in down payment assistance. Together, NHF and GSFA have done $24 billion in financing in mortgage financing. So it's not too bad for a government entity. This is a program that we have started, I'd say maybe 2 years ago now. And it was really when Pat Blacklock from our CEO came from Yolo County. He's got a county thought, and he wanted us to put a program together to focus on county employees to help retain county employees. And so we did the Assist to Own program. We made it a bit more of a special program where we're doing 0% financing on the second mortgage for down payment assistance and some more flexible guidelines, and up to 5.5% of the mortgage loan you can get in down payment assistance. And I believe we've done, it says right there, there's been already 2 county employees of Tuolumne County that have used this program. And the board approved $3 million of our own money towards down payment assistance, and we're probably at $1.8 million now. And if we reach that $3 million, it's an exciting program, and most of the board members really like it. So I'm assuming they're going to just come back and add to it and keep it going. And then Golden State Connect Authority is a newer JPA, and this is focusing on broadband in rural California. And I think everyone realized when COVID hit, rural California was probably the worst in the country for obtaining internet. And many kids in rural California couldn't access school because there was no internet. And so we've been working with some stakeholders and partnered with this entity out of Utah called Utopia Fiber. And they're a government entity out of Utah. And they've got the largest open access municipality-owned network in the country. And open access means they build, own, and operate the infrastructure, and they invite internet service providers into their network. And it can be AT&T, it can be Monkey Brains, it can be Verizon, but they don't own or operate it. And you as a consumer of the internet, you can pick whoever you want. And they've got 15 of them currently, and if you pick AT&T, great. If you don't like AT&T, you can go to Comcast. I'm 7 miles of downtown Sacramento, and I got one choice, it's Comcast. I don't have open access choice, and we don't have it in California at all. But the goal here is to get open access. We've been working with the CPUC, first of all, to get a loan loss reserve of money to back bonds, because we're going to sell bonds. We're going to go and issue debt to build this. We were well on our way to getting quite a decent amount of backing, and the idea is not to use it. It's a backstop. We sell debt, but if there's a shortfall in revenue from after we build and operate, that would be an insurance fund to cover the loss. Therefore, investors are going to be happy to invest in this program. Utopia Fiber has a similar thing where they use their city and county taxes. We didn't want to go that route. They have never had to dip into the city and county taxes because it's been a very profitable avenue for them. So we partnered with them. We were on our way to get $150 million in loan loss reserve, but then California lost all its money, and they zeroed all of that out. And I think we're in the hopes of obtaining at least $50 million as that backstop. And currently we are in the middle of applying for FFA, which is the federal I just went blank on what it is, but it's the last mile federal advancement account funds. And we're applying for later 37 counties, and Tuolumne is one of them. We've already been awarded in 4 counties. I believe it's Imperial, Alpine, Mammoth Lake City, and Mona County. And we've been awarded several $1 million. And that's to bridge the gap of, it's going to cost this much to build. We can't charge more than what the debt service requires on the bonds because we don't want to make it too expensive for consumers. That last mile funding will bridge that gap so we can actually build the whole setup and consumers can have a very affordable internet service. And then we got Golden State Natural Resources, which is probably close to your heart because we a few years ago bought a site in Jamestown, and the idea here is to clear the forest from the dead wood and the fuel that the biomass that fuels these fires that we're even seeing right now. So it's not that we're getting into the wood business or the pellet business. It's more of healthy forest resiliency. That's the idea, but we can't do it for free. So the idea is Europe and Asia are really keen on pellets, and they're replacing their coal. And as we know, most of them have got rid of nuclear, and pellets burn clean. And our idea is to, we've got a 20-year master stewardship agreement with the U.S. National Forest. Most of California's forest is U.S. National Forest, so that gives us access to the forest. And the idea there is to pull out that dead wood and ship it off. Right now, we're in the middle of an environmental review. We've been at that for a good year, and we should hopefully be over that by September, and then we get litigated. Then we go into a lawsuit, and we've got money aside to cover it, and we're going to come out on top. And once that's done, once we've got the environmental review approved, we've got the U.S. Forest Service agreement, then we can start talking real to stakeholders. We're in a partnership with Drax, who's the largest pellet producer and user in the world, and they're very interested in working with Golden State Natural Resources. They've been operating pellet mills around this country and Europe for years, and so we're very excited of that partnership. And it makes us real. And when we're talking to investors for issuing debt, because we're not going to be using taxpayer money, we're going to deal with the private capital markets, equity and debt, and Drax is going to be there helping us along the way. And then the ESJPA is it's been around a while. It's growing its membership because for years our member counties of RCRC weren't really participating in this Joint Powers Authority, but over the past couple of years we've grown it by about 10 counties, and that's more of a service, regulatory advocacy, education campaigns, administers grants for recycling and hazardous waste and management programs or what have you. So that's been around since '93. And then what used to be called, I just went blank on we just brought this company back from dormancy. Rural Alliance Inc. was the name, and it had a focus on, several, housing and energy and what have you programs. But now it's going to be an educational company for bringing policymakers to rural California to show them, because most of them just never get out here. And you can see what the focus is. It's from agriculture to housing to battery infrastructure, rural homelessness, the shortage of housing in rural California. And we've already done one tour where we brought policymakers in, and that was done in Mariposa County, and it was a 2-day tour, and it went well. It's a 501c3, so we're actually working with other stakeholders of ours, like U.S. Bank and Freddie Mac, and trying to get them to help fund this entity because it is a 501c3, and there's a focus on housing. And we've also called a bunch of the lenders to say, look, throw some money at this company. It's all about advancement in rural California. And so that's kind of the newest affiliate of ours, which is actually quite exciting too. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. We just wanted to come brag to you on how great we are for you, and we're there supporting you, and we work for you, and you're one of our supervisors that has been on our board for a good while, and very supportive all the time, and and I'm assuming you've all been to our annual meeting, which is 18th September this year in Sonoma County, and we look forward to seeing you guys then. If you've got any questions, please.
Okay, looking to board members for questions. Supervisor Campbell, do you want to start?
I didn't have any questions. I'm just really grateful that you came to present this, and I don't have any questions on the presentation.
Okay. Supervisor Hatt, do you have any?
This started with the strategic plan, and I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to know, we're starting the strategic plan again, the process, and if you had any comments to this board to let them know anything in particular about that.
Well, the process, and it was at the County of the Chair meeting in Monterey, where Supervisor Half had that little accident. I didn't realize he's still walking with a cane. That's terrible.
Oh, I just started walking with a cane. I was in a walker.
Oh, my goodness. But there's a strategic plan, but we get all the board members involved, right? And so we ask, what do you want to see from RCRC and even its affiliates? And it's a bunch of sticky notes that the board just writes down stuff. And from all the categories I mentioned in the middle, what do you want from RCRC? What do you want strategically? What do you want from, the affiliates? What do you need for your counties? Is it homelessness? Is it affordability? Is it workforce housing? Where do you want us to focus? And then we get all that together and we work internally and we just put the strategic plan together. And then we come back to the board with it to see if there's any, additions or revisions and what have you. So we just, did that a few months ago, and I forget how often we do it. It's not every year. I think that was a 2-year plan, and then we'll do it again in 2 years. So we'll have a revised strategic plan with anything that was different or what we didn't meet under this plan. We've been growing. As I said, counties want to join. I think we're kind of at our limit, and RCRC doesn't make money on its own, but it charges the affiliate companies for our time. And GSFA and NHF historically have, with all the billions of financing, we've taken some in-house and we've been able to pass it off to RCRC. RCRC has got a very good balance sheet right now. And beforehand, it was a little low. If you put all the affiliates and RCRC together, it's got a balance sheet that we're going to be around for a while and can support the counties for quite a long time, which is all part of the strategic plan.
And then, Craig, I wanted to ask you, how long have you been with RCRC and GCSFA?
I started 17 years ago. So I came from Citibank. I was in the banking world. And then prior to that, Raymond James. And RCRC was my client. And so back in 2007, I did a presentation at the RCRC annual meeting, and the president at the time got to know me and asked me to come work here. And I was in Dallas at the time, and I said, why am I going to go work for a nonprofit? It doesn't make any sense. And then about 9 months of negotiation. And part of it is I'd never been to Tahoe before, and I drove up from the south to the north, and I'd never seen anything so beautiful. I was like, you know what? And I had a 2-year-old at the time, and my wife at the time was pregnant with our second. I was like, you know what? I'm done with the rat race. I'm moving to California, and that's 17 years ago. So it's kind of cool.
Well, and this isn't a question, but I'd just like to point out that a lot of the success, the financial success that RCRC has had is due to this man. Just wanted to thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's a heck of a team. It's a heck of a team.
Yeah, but you were at the helm. So I just wanted to point that out.
And the tenureship of a lot of staff at RCRC, Peter's been there 23 years, Dan's been there 21 years, I've been there 17 years, Anthony's been there 17 years, Carolyn's been there 18 years. It just shows what a nice, good company it is, because for that length of time, there's not many companies that people stay on that long, you know? So, yeah, I'm extremely happy there, and it's been a fabulous place to work, and I'll even give shout out to Pat, since he's come in, you know, as a prior CAO, he gets this, and he's excited, and he's focusing on the broadband and the biomass and the housing, and it's exciting. He's excited, and his excitement is shared with the rest of the group.
Thank you.
Supervisor Brandon, no, I did have one question, which is regarding the pellet project. You touched on it, you know, quickly. The timeframes. You know, we've kind of, this has been around for a bit, and there's been discussion. If you could kind of.
So it has been around for a bit, and we changed it up and brought it all internally, because at the time GSNR was kind of, when there was a transition from the prior CEO to the new CEO, the prior CEO kept GSNR, and they had that focus, and GSNR at the time had borrowed $10 million from GSFA, and that money's almost used up, pretty much used up, and we weren't seeing too much movement. We brought it in-house, and what was, I think should have been done earlier is this environmental review, because we can't go anything without being environmentally approved to do this, and that's where we are right now, and we've been working on that for a year. So we've kind of just pushed everyone aside, not spending $1 billion on consultants and stakeholders and what have you until we get this done, and then once this is done, and our recent partnership with Drax, things are moving quicker now in the last, say, 8 months than they were for the last 5 years. And it's moving quickly. And, you know, we're getting a lot of flack out of Stockton even, because that's where we plan on shipping from. And, you know, there's 20 environmental companies that are all saying the same thing, but just, you know, there's articles about us and Drax and how terrible this is for the environment and how you shouldn't go into the forest. And then you see this fire that just pops up, and like, you know, it wouldn't be that bad if that dead wood was pulled out, you know. But to answer your question, yeah, it's moving quickly now, and it has been for about 8 months, a lot quicker than it was.
Okay, thank you. I didn't have additional questions. I'll look to the public for public comment on this item. Come up to the podium, please, and address the board.
I just have a question. There's a lawsuit for the Golden
If you could address the board, please, sir. Address the board. Thank you.
Can I?
No, address the board, please.
So I have to go through you to talk to the gentleman?
Yes.
Okay. The Golden State Financial Authority's had this 20-year stewardship agreement for almost 5 years now. And he mentioned the lawsuit. I was just wondering who's suing Golden State Financial Authority. I wonder if you might tell us.
First of all, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't understand how the process works, but I think it's very traditional when there's an approval put forth by when the environmental review is approved, then it's litigated by those environmentalists, and that's what's going to happen. And per our general counsel, that's just what happens every time.
Well, I'd come, we're going to have Tom McClintock's cruise coming in, is that correct? 11:30 to 12:30, wasn't that the 13th? I got an email last night, Tuesday, at the supervisors series. Well, anyway, since I have you here, and since we have a guest here, I don't know where to start. We've talked about 7 times on this. And the fact that Golden State Financial Authority hasn't really done anything. They talk about building a mystery factory down at J59 and 108, which is about as far from the forest as you can get. I've asked at one of their 3 almost secretive scoping meetings, which are really disorganized, and stonewalling was pretty heavy. I think I told you at the last meeting, we were asking questions, and the person that was there, as we raised concerns about their plans, was there really anything planned? we've talked to the Port of Stockton, and they still politely laugh about this shipping industrial wood pellets all over the world. That's a 3-year process to set up rails and international trade, and you have to prove that your industrial wood pellets have enough BTUs to meet their reactors there. There's big question marks about all that. We got a 3-minute clock. 3-minute clock here. They really don't want to hear from the county too much, but it's still a scam. The local media is gaslighting to protect people who are in with this. They won't answer questions. They won't say where the money is. They haven't been vetted. You didn't vet them. And so, anyway, I'm not surprised that there'll be some legal stuff. And I'm not an environmentalist. I just like to see people, vet companies that are for real, not something that's under a non-disclosure agreement like Yosemite Natural Resources. They're coming, they're going to do all these wonderful things in O'Byrne's Ferry, and none of them has a plan, and none of them wants to talk anything about this. And so right now, I was hoping I could talk to someone in Mr. McClintock's office. Been talking with Washington, and this has kind of all been handled poorly. They should have had a hearing here, and you should have been a part of it. Mr. McClintock and the head of the Agriculture Department should have been there.
Thank you.
It's weird. Half of the email that said Mr. McClintock's office would be here today from 11:30 to 12.
Just for clarity, I believe there are office hours today.
Yeah, the office hours. I thought you meant on the agenda. I think there is somebody here. Go check in with, yeah, not on our board agenda, though.
Is there any additional public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for any closing comments. Anybody have anything? Supervisor Brandon.
Great. I just want to agree that thank you for coming up and being able to do a presentation on this. It's nice to see kind of everything laid out. RCRC has been, since my limited time, which has only been about 3.5 years, a fantastic partner. We are so blessed to have such an organized, well-funded, professional rural advocacy group, county advocacy group, and then also with a national at the federal level too. RCRC has been in the trenches on every single issue. I don't think there's anything we've really had different positions. Every idea that's brought forward really makes a lot of sense. So just want to say thank you on that. On the housing thing as well, I know that that's emerging. We've had 2 employees be able to take advantage of that. That's something I would love to see expand. I think it's a great idea, and I think every county is really struggling with hiring, and housing is a huge part of that. I know I sit also on the Institute for Local Government Board, and they're looking at the training and apprenticeship type models to try and get more people into the public sector. There's an article that came out recently talking about the massive decline in people considering public sector work because a lot of the challenges, the lengthy hiring processes and all that stuff. This is one thing that I think can really help with it. I wanted to throw out one additional, and I know the appropriate space would be at those board meetings, but an idea to maybe bring back has been something we've discussed within our county, modeled after what's happening in another state, is the idea of federal workers too, which are so critical to the work that we do in our forests. They have a huge vacancy issue. Part of it is how they end up getting paid and what type of region, but a lot of the work is not particularly highly paid compared to California, costs of living. And public housing projects on some of their land, I think, is an opportunity. I know this is helping to purchase private market housing, and as you mentioned, availability is an issue. But in the development of kind of public benefit, public housing that could be for county staff, or it could be for critical partners like the Forest Service. We even have 2 public housing projects within our county that we've approved, 3 years ago one of them was, and I think 2 years for the other one. Finding the financing to pull that together has been a challenge. And maybe there is a way to negotiate with this for employees and access that's able to basically get it across the finish line. And the saddest thing is where we have a need and we have willing partners, but just because we're weird and making a weird request, it's not going to fit into a normal finance market. That something ends up falling behind. But like I said, I'm a huge fan of everything that RCRC is doing on broadband, on fire insurance advocacy, on housing finance, on what we're doing with biomass, advocacy, trying to get that out of the forest and value-added products. And I think it's really something that is an underappreciated story. I wish that more of the public knew how much work goes into fighting for local governments, even if we're not winning that every legislative session. It would be worse, and we are racking up a lot of wins. And it's because we've just got great representative groups, really great representative groups.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And that is a very good idea with regards to federal workers, especially now that we are making headwinds into the forest for the biomass. But there's an incredible shortage of workforce and housing. And I think a good discussion with the Forest Service to have them maybe obtain federal funding for us to do what we can do with housing. And I think that is we have started that talk, utilizing their public lands that they can offer maybe on a 100-year ground lease to a developer who can come in and build and not have to pay for the property, because that just makes it more affordable and feasible. So yeah, there's definitely going to be talk about that. And when we make more headway, it's going to be a topic. And the Forest Service is very excited about this, so they want to help.
Would be a great pilot project area.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you. Supervisor Campbell.
Yeah, Craig, I really appreciate the presentation, and I echo Supervisor Brandon's comments. I also, I've been spending a lot more time this year than any of the years prior that I've been on the board in Sacramento for a variety of reasons, but I've just been up there quite a bit lately. But despite that, there's so much going on in the legislature that no rural county, especially of our size, has the resources to be able to track that or to be able to advocate effectively for our communities. And I get a lot of emails from various groups alerting me to legislation that's coming down the pike. But I know when I get an email from RCRC, that kind of triggers me to read it a little more quickly than I might read some of the others, because I know that if you're alerting me to some kind of issue that needs attention, that it truly does apply to the lives of the people that live in Tuolumne County, which, some legislation does, other legislation doesn't, but I know when it comes from RCRC that it's going to have a direct impact on rural communities. So having that voice and just the eyes in the Capitol keeping track for us is incredibly valuable. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. Supervisor Heft, do you have additional?
Yeah, mostly I just like to acknowledge my colleagues on the board and their comments, but to also remind you all, department heads know this somewhat, but when I go as Tuolumne County's representative to these meetings, there's a roundtable. And very frequently I've gotten something, usually from a staff member, that they are chewing on and don't have any answers for. So I put it out to the group and oftentimes get people coming up to me during break and saying, well, here, we've done this or we've done that. And it's very helpful. So I just wanted to remind you, because I think I've noted before that if there's something through your groups that isn't sitting well, and it's something that Tuolumne County is dealing with on a bigger scale, mention it to me so I can bring it to the roundtable and hopefully get some kind of feedback and answers, because that's a great place to go. We've got a lot of sympathetic ears from counties, because as rural counties, we're all dealing with the same sort of stuff, and very frequently the other delegates have some answers for us. And thank you, Craig, so much for being here. Like I told you when I saw you, I didn't realize you're going to be here in person. That's outstanding that you came here.
Oh, no, I absolutely. I appreciate your time. It's actually one of my favorite drives. So, yeah.
So, a lot of stuff going on here. is positive. Some of these things take time. It's good when it takes time, to make sure that everything's flushed out and, looking at all the various intricacies. Some areas, I too appreciate, programs like this home assistance, like to see greater involvement, amongst our own, employees in that. It's a great program. I'm in favor of the pellet project, and we've got other biomass projects, being discussed, of course, and, there's been concern expressed at times, as far as, is there enough product, to sustain
Right.
that type of thing. Supervisor Haft, did you have a?
Yeah, something that we've talked about in these meetings is we're calling it the Forest Health Project, because that ultimately is what it's doing. It's cleaning up the forest rather than focusing on the pellets. And I think that still stands. And so if we can start, when we talk about it, we can say biomass to trigger people's attention, but it is a forest health project, and that's what we want to emphasize, that we're cleaning our forests, and it will be better for all of us, whether it's, less risk as far as forest fires or possibly reducing our risk as far as insurance, but it's a forest health project.
Understand.
Thank you.
And then on the home buyer assistance, the county employee home buyer assistance, I don't recall if our team has provided a training to your group and just let me know if you want, get county employees together, and there's a webinar, and they do it every week. And if there's any questions about how to utilize it, which lenders to work with, our team does that every week. So and we may have done it for Tuolumne. I could be.
Yeah, I'm not sure about actually having come up, but your team has provided a lot of detailed support to our HR department, and we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
The last item I wanted to just to mention is everything that's been going on in the broadband world, which you expressed. Supervisor Haff has been very involved in that. Supervisor Brandon has been, quite involved in those efforts as well. We have been, as a board and individually, from Supervisor Haff, has been making contacts with CPUC and trying to resolve some situational things that we hope to get beyond, and so that additional funding can be released for Tuolumne County to help our efforts. We've got an excellent staff employee that is working very hard on this, Len, and he's doing a great job. And but it's this extra effort and support coming from RCRC makes all the difference. And so.
I appreciate that. And Barbara at the helm of that has just done an amazing job keeping it on track. We've got a team. We've got KeyBank that, heck, I've been talking to for more than 5 years now. But they're the banker who underwrote the debt for Utopia. We've got our bond counsel. We've got our financial. We've got everyone set up, ready to go. As soon as we get the funding, we're ready to go with it, and it's exciting.
It is definitely, and so desperately needed. So, Craig, thank you very much for coming down, and appreciate the offer for follow-up sessions, webinars regarding home assistance or other areas that we'll look into that better. And but again, we really appreciate you coming.
Appreciate you back. Thank you, and see you guys in September, I think, right? Sonoma.
Yeah. All right. So
enjoy practice tonight.
So at this point, we've got one additional item on our agenda, which is another closed session item. And so what we'd like to do is, if I'm going to have the clerk please read item number 4, closed session.
Item number 4, closed session, public employee performance evaluation, Authority Government Code Section 54957, B1, titles, County Administrator.
Great. So we're prepared to go back into closed session at this time. Is that correct? Or I'll take the pulse of the board. Would you like to go into close, which would free up, or?
I'd say let's just do closed.
I'm saying lunch first, let's not do this on an empty stomach.
Is this expected to take a long time, though?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Okay, let's, we've read the item. What we'll do is we'll break for lunch, and at 1:30 then we'll go into closed session to discuss item 4.
Could we give it the old college try until 12:30 and see if we can resolve it quickly? And then break for lunch? Yeah. And at 12:30, yeah, break for lunch if we need to.
I'm okay.
I think the chair is going to have to resolve this because we're yeah. So I'll support your.
It's an hour and a half. That may be for a short.
Your
item.
choice.
Yeah, let's go ahead and break for lunch, and I'll go with the suggestion that we break for an hour, and we meet in closed session at 1 o'clock at the law library, and do we expect any report out on this? Okay. So I'll look for public comment on item 4, closed session. Is there any public comment?
Sure.
Okay, seeing none, we'll recess for lunch and then into closed session, but we will not be coming back and actively doing additional board items.